Late in the 1980s, I discovered a new way of healing the soul. I was deeply depressed in this period of my life and was searching unsuccessfully for a solution until I saw the film The Kiss of the Spider Woman. The issues raised in that story led me on a course of inquiry that ultimately changed not only my understanding of myself, but caused me to rethink the very nature of the way we define masculine and feminine. This new insight taught me how to relate to people in a richer and more creative way. Subsequently, the black cloud I'd been living under vanished. The Kiss of the Spider Woman is set in Latin America and revolves around two men who are thrown together into prison. Melina, an eccentric homosexual played by William Hurt, and Valentine, a political prisoner played by Raul Julia. Trapped in their tiny prison cell, Melina entertains Valentine with stories about his favorite movies, starring his most cherished movie queen, who was played by Sonia Braga. In the film, Braga plays three different characters, all of whom are symbolized by the figure of the Spider-Woman. For days afterwards, I thought about this character. I wanted to know more about her, who she was and what she represented. I remembered the Spider-Woman from my study of Native American mythology and began to do some reading. I learned that this mythical figure is the mother who gave birth to male twin heroes in the Navajo and Hopi cultures. This discovery of twin heroes fascinated me. Mythology is full of hero figures, but I'd never heard of twin heroes before. I began to search through my mythology books to see if there were other instances of twins. To my surprise, almost everywhere I looked, I found cultural and religious myths with male twin heroes. In the Western Hemisphere alone, this includes the Hopi, Navajo, Mayan, Iroquois, Zuni, Aztec, and most every other tribe from the north of Canada to the tip of South America. I began to see male twins everywhere in our culture, in contemporary art as well as in ancient myth. In Greek culture, there are the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux. In the Old Testament, we have the twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Gnostic Thomas actually means twin. In the ancient Roman myth of Romulus and Remus, the structure of the twin myth underwent a crucial change. Romulus, an archetype of the sun, enters into battle with his brother Remus, who is an archetype of the moon. Romulus kills Remus and emerges as the blood-stained but victorious and solitary brother. This splitting of the male twin psyche in Western mythic history pushed the murdered lunar half of masculinity into the collective subconscious, locking it away. The mythic structure of twin figures had been forever altered. Like a searing hot branding iron, this primal murder has left its mark on Western psychology. John Wayne stands as a contemporary image of this lone warrior. As I further reviewed Hopi mythology, I found that the moon is a masculine figure actually older than the sun. As the Hopis say, grandfather moon and father sun. I had never heard of the moon described as masculine. This contradicted my own assumption that the moon is innately feminine. For years, I had associated the moon with the feminine side of myself and other men. This equating of the lunar with femininity was put forward by Carl Jung in his concept of anima. Part of my own struggle had been how to come to terms with what I thought of as the feminine side of myself. I then realized how important language is in conditioning our understanding of things. Why must the lunar side of a man be labeled as feminine? The notion that the moon could be a masculine archetype as well as a feminine one led me to rethink what has been wrongly termed as the feminine side of a man. As I thought about the Kiss of the Spider Woman, I began to see Melina and Valentine as twin hero figures representing the moon and the sun. Two men, one lunar, the other solar, the polar opposites making up a whole masculinity. From an archetypal point of view, then, all men and women are born containing both the solar and the lunar. Too often, while the solar qualities in a man are called heterosexual, the lunar qualities are labeled homosexual. This perception is incorrect. Putting aside a man's sexual orientation, all men are both solar and lunar. I began to reevaluate my own thinking process and the labels I had attributed to the basic human qualities we all share, regardless of sexual orientation and gender. This new understanding led to a turning point in my life and eventually lifted me from the deep depression that I had not been able to resolve through classical analysis. Importantly, I was able to accept the qualities in myself that are part of the lunar masculine. As I continued my research, I was struck by how few examples there were of myths incorporating female twins. And yet there were countless myths with women entwined in enduring relationships as mother and daughter, two sisters, or close friends. In Greek mythology, there are Demeter and Persephone. In the mythology of ancient Sumer, Inanna and Ereshkigal. In each of these pairs, as with male twins, I saw that one of the women represented the solar and the other the lunar. This clarified the landscape even more for me. Women's psychology, too, contains this archetypal balance. The challenge for men today is to see the moon hero in themselves, to embrace their own tenderness, receptivity, intuition, compassion, and emotional life as a primary masculine energy, and to undo the onus that these are exclusively feminine attributes. Women have perhaps outdistanced men in the last 25 years by moving beyond the confines of their lunar side and have begun to open to their solar side, to their own fire, logic, clarity, endurance, competitiveness, and goal-directed behavior. The sun and moon are primal energies in both men and women. How the balance of these two aspects plays itself out in each individual is as varied as our people. The either-or mentality dictating that women are exclusively lunar and men exclusively solar is a contrived social construct far more than it is a biological fact. In our highly industrialized Western culture, we have grown so far from nature that we rarely think of the sun and moon as central organizing poles of our psyche. But in actuality, solar and lunar archetypes are fundamental to consciousness, and of themselves they are gender-free. To continue associating intuition and emotion with the feminine, and independence, reason, and assertiveness with the masculine, cuts us off from our primordial other half. The solar and lunar are polarities that modify gender but do not define it. Imagine what it would be like if men and women were to freely express their lunar and solar qualities as each gender's natural inheritance. How different our relationships with each other would be. By healing the divide in our understanding of solar-lunar, we take a step forward in our personal development to find out who we really are rather than who society thinks we should be. And if, as the parable goes, the flapping of a butterfly's wings on some distant continent ultimately affects the whole world, then this act of self-integration will play itself out in more beautiful ways than we can ever imagine.